Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to Armored Warfare, where today I want to do something new in covering the Armored Warfare content, and that is, I think I would like to go ahead and start a new player guide series for Armored Warfare. I have something like this for World of Warships, and it's been really good, and I feel that I've been playing the game long enough now that I feel competent that I can at least start a new player guide series for Armored Warfare. An intermediate player guide series or veteran player guide series would be very far off in the future, not close for now, but in starting off with this new player guide series in episode 1, before really beginning to get in and look more closely at the game, so to speak, and going over something like the garage and certain game mechanics, I think it'd be best for this episode to talk about what is Armored Warfare, because likely there are some of you who are perhaps new playing the game. Others, you are wondering, is Armored Warfare for me? Should I consider playing the game, or should I just, be on my own, go do my own thing, so to speak? So I kind of first just want to talk about what is Armored Warfare, talk about what the system requirements are based off what you see in Steam, what you see among the community, but then also just talking about what type of content, so to speak, do you have in the game. So first, Armored Warfare. There's one correction they need to update here, but when they're talking about what is Armored Warfare is a team-based action MMO, massive multiplayer online tank game from my.com for the PC. That has since changed, where now the publisher is, the developer was Obsidian Entertainment, and it's Wishlist Games now, and publisher is also Wishlist Games, so they just had to change there. And then immerse yourself into the world of modern armored vehicle combat. Now, in Steam, if you're considering downloading this game on Steam, the way they talk about Armored Warfare here is that it is free to play. You can definitely play this game without spending any money on it. And here you wage war against players around the world with an unstoppable arsenal of powerful armored combat vehicles. Use 300 plus vehicles to engage in furious player versus player tank combat, complete co-op missions, and crush your enemies on breathtaking maps from scorching deserts to neon-drenched urban jungles. So that's the way they define this MMO, this massive multiplayer online, but it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a multiplayer online game. It's not a massive multiplayer online game, just because there's not a lot of people who play this game in general. I made a whole video, I can put at the end of this one, talking about is the game dead, as it had a big falling off several years ago when they kind of ceased working with Obsidian Entertainment as one of the developers for the game. But I digress. Talking a little bit more about what is Armored Warfare. In the game, you have, of course, different types of vehicles. You have premium vehicles that provide increased credits and experience bonuses. You have progression, or maybe you would also know it as tech tree vehicles, tanks that can be purchased from dealers. So it's not like, and that's something when I first started playing the game, I was confused because I thought it would be like nations, so to speak, and it's not that way. It's from dealers, and basically this is kind of like there's no one nation in control. It's these dealers, it's these large corporations, and that are kind of controlling the world. As it's set to place more in the future, you'll see if you're playing a game, it'll say 2030, 2040, maybe 2050. I can't remember. I think it's at least in the 2040s they'll say. So progression vehicles, tech tree vehicles that can be purchased with dealers for credits, and then grinding them, of course, as well with the experience. And then you have special vehicles that are not obtainable directly from dealers, but they're assigned to them for such as what they call the battle path, and raid missions with dealer requirements. And you also pick up other vehicles, tanks, if you're in a battalion. There's not a lot of battalions in the game. There's not as many active as there were back in the day. and you can get parts and build your own tanks. So you might have to collect anywhere from I don't know. Like I know you can have to collect up to 100 parts for some tanks to finally build the full tank. So the 5 different types of vehicles, tanks you have in the game. You have the main battle tanks, also known as MBT. Then you have armored fighting vehicles, also known as AFVs. Then you have light tanks, also known as LTs. Then you have tank destroyers, as the acronym TD. And then you have self-propelled guns, SPGs, and those are like artillery pieces in the game. So you have a lot of different types of vehicles in the game. Some of the ones that historically perhaps that you quite like, whether you're talking about something like the AMX-50, the Leopard 1, just kind of going through some of the list here, the Object 430, you have the Chieftain Mark 6, the Leopard 1A5, from the M60A3 to M1 Abrams, just in terms of the main battle tank category. So there's just a lot of tanks in the game. If you're a big tank fan, then likely Armored Warfare is going to have it for you. Now the other thing I did want to talk about is kind of where does Armored Warfare fall in the meta between talking about World of Tanks and also War Thunder. And I thought there was a review, I thought that was quite funny, where they talked about, basically this one guy said, War Thunder and World of Tanks detox. So a lot of people actually liked that comment and they thought it was quite funny. You do not have as massive as online community compared to World of Tanks, which is probably quite dominant on the market with developer Wargaming. And then you have War Thunder, developed, it's done by publishers Gachi Games, if I remember correctly. And that has a lot of different elements into that as well. And then you have Armored Warfare. Armored Warfare is the lesser of those three, to just put it bluntly. Each game kind of hits on its own different things. Most players are probably going to be more apt to draw in towards World of Tanks as an example, or War Thunder. But there are some things that here in Armored Warfare that's offered, such as not just the player versus player experience, but there is a large number of players who like to play the game for the PvE, player versus environment, co-op missions. So a lot of people will be there playing the operations here in the game, which is a lot of what like the battalion I'm in. We do a lot of that, where the player versus player can take you can be waiting really long times in queue, as an example. But we can talk a little bit more about that. But let me just say that, is Armored Warfare for you? Well, honestly, I mean, you can kind of check out some videos on YouTube for you to decide. I mean, there are, I would say, I mean, I've watched War Thunder content, I've watched World of Tanks content. One of the reasons why I started playing Armored Warfare is I wanted to get away from wargaming, because of just the decisions they make with World of Warships. Sometimes I'm very displeased with, and you had this big crew they were talking about doing with World of Tanks, and there was just a lot of upheaval in the community. And Quickie Baby is actually one of my favorite Twitch streamers, content creators, and I don't play World of Tanks, but I just like watching him talk about the game, and he gives a pretty honest assessment and overview of the game, so on and so forth. So I want to go in a new direction. I wasn't really too fond of what I saw with War Thunder, so to speak. So I thought I would try out Armored Warfare, and also I had a close friend that also recommended it to me. So that's why I played it. If you want to play a tank game where you can relax and chill out, then I would say Armored Warfare is perhaps maybe the best of the three. If you're not wanting to be kind of caught up in all the player versus player, if you're wanting more player versus environment co-op, doing a certain set of primary tasks, secondary tasks for these operations and that you'll do within the game, so on to speak, It's more relaxing. I play Armored Warfare more to chill out. For myself, as an example, playing World of Warships, because sometimes I need to step away from that game and just kind of have a breather. So there's some really good player versus environment things that wishlist games, the current devs are doing with Armored Warfare, and they acknowledge that the majority of their player base, the reality of why most of them are there, are for these operations, these PvE, these co-op missions. So they acknowledge that is a large part of their community because the player versus player is not as great. I'll probably get into that a little bit later. But let me just talk about what do they recommend in terms of, if I can find it, system requirements. Because maybe you're wondering if you are able to have that here for the game. The minimum system requirements, they say, in terms of the operating system, is a Windows 7, 8, 10, or 11 by 64. A processor being an Intel Core 2 Duo, CPU 6700 or with the 2.7 gigahertz or equivalent. Memory, they minimum 4 gigabyte RAM. Graphics, something like an NVIDIA GeForce 9500 GT or equivalent. DirectX version 9.0 storage, 34 gigabytes available space, and a sound card being DirectX compatible. Sound card must be some type of software, if I understand that correctly, that they're using with their game. But what they recommend, same Windows 7, 8, 10, 11 by 64, an Intel Core i5 4440 CPU, central processing unit, 3.3 gigahertz or equivalent. Memory of 6 gigabyte RAMs, graphics card being an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 660 or equivalent. For example, my current, I'm building a new PC right now, which I've just about got finalized, but I run like a GTX 1660 Ti, if I remember correctly, from NVIDIA. DirectX version 12, and of course you're going to need broadband internet connection playing the game. Here they recommend 40 gigabytes of available space and a sound card, DirectX compatible sound card. And they also, important note here for Steam, is starting January 1st, 2024, already this year, the Steam client will only support Windows 10 and later versions. So that is the system requirements here for Armored Warfare. And I wanted to kind of bounce in, beyond just getting my own thoughts, and talking about what is Armored Warfare, this, that, and the other, just talking about some of the things that you see in the community. So I'm just going to read from some most helpful reviews, also some interesting points that get brought out with the game. Some of these, most players I tend to find that give Armored Warfare some good thumbs up. Could be the newer players, right? New to the game, it meets their expectations, but over time, maybe they become more disenchanted, so to speak, with the game. So it's always important to see how many hours people play. Like this person is quite new at the time. Within only 10 hours of playing the game, they said this is a good alternative to World of Tanks, less of a grind, and offers PvE content as well. Bottom line, it's fun. Another person who has done over 670 hours in reviewing the game. So going through Steam, I should be logged in, getting its launcher, says I'm not logged in, so no daily rewards given, so why use Steam? Fix it or I ditch it. It's probably worth considering to download Armored Warfare Direct via the website, perhaps not going through Steam. I go through Steam. That's just me. There's giving away some things, but then you just have to deal with Steam sometimes when you're going through in terms of the launcher. Some people talk about how the game Armored Warfare is good at smashing bots, being the PvE environment. Is also, this another person says, they're quite brand new in reviewing the game. Cool MMO strategy with brutal techniques and ton of action is definitely worth trying. Such a good project game for free. Another person said it's better than World of Tanks and War Thunder. Now, some of the more critiquing that you'll see, like this person who is just brand new to the game, they make a good point despite being brand new to the game. They had said, this is actually just here in June, it said, sadly the game appears on its last leg. The game is fun, but waiting 10 plus minutes for a PvE match is just too much. Now, the developer actually responded here. This was 2000 Valand, I think was his name, who responds, where he says, based on our stats and what is visible in the game counter, the average waiting time to play PvE is less than 2 minutes. For higher tiers, it's even shorter. However, it all depends on the hours. Our community is mainly concentrated in Europe. So this is actually a big thing that I wanted to point out and talk about, as well as talking about what is Armored Warfare. Most of their players are here in Europe. Like myself, I'm in Norway, an American living in Norway. And you will find that if you play like the evening hours or afternoon, evening hours, European time, you will have much shorter queue times and waiting to drop into matches. Where if you're hopping on in the, let's say, Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m., then it could be, it's already 3 a.m. Here in Europe, or like Norway time as an example, and you're going to have to wait a really long time. So that's something else to really consider if you're in North America and you don't want to wait long queue times for like the PvE content, and you don't want to have to be like, well, shoot, it means I have to play at like 3 p.m. in the day. And I work most the entire week, and I would like to not have to come sit and wait a long time to play the game, then perhaps Armored Warfare isn't necessarily for you. Unless, the weekend can be a little bit more flexible for you, as an example. But you will have long queue times if you're in North America, South America, Central America, that time zone, just because most of their players are concentrated in Europe. So what he says is true in the average waiting time to play PvEs being less than 2 minutes, and then it's even shorter for higher tiers. But that is if you're playing during the European prime time. If you're not, then the average waiting time is longer. So it depends on what window or context filter you're looking at that through. Yeah, so other things that I would say in addition to what some of these other people have said, is also if you're looking for a really competitive PvP game, then Armored Warfare is just not for you. You would want to look more at World of Tanks or War Thunder if you really like the player versus player action. For example, they do ranked battles here in Armored Warfare on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I will be sitting to help my battalion get some more ranked points. And on like a Friday evening or maybe even a Sunday evening, there's just not many players in queue. Like you have a lot more in queue on Saturday. And you can be sitting for a long time and just never drop. And then can be quite, the meta can be quite camping. You're waiting for the other team to make a mistake and pushing in early. And then there are certain tanks that are just like, whoever, and generally speaking, it's not always true, but whoever has these certain high tier tanks is be higher tier, like tier 9, tier 10 tanks. Whoever has more of these, then they're likely the team that's going to win. And some of these tanks are just like incredibly overpowered, so to speak. So that's another thing to take into consideration. If you're wanting to play a tank game for player versus player, I wouldn't recommend Armored Warfare for you. I would recommend World of Tanks, War Thunder. If you want more PvE action, then I would say Armored Warfare is a really good option for you, certainly. I like playing the PvE content of Armored Warfare a lot. It's quite funny. The bots can be, the way they've programmed them can be quite vindictive, in the sense of like you secure the area and then they'll just spawn like a tank, enemy tank bot like just behind you on the flank. So it does keep you on the toes. I mean, it's not like the bots are really crappy and their programming is terrible. It's really good, honestly, I think so. So it is a bit of a challenge in playing in the PvE meta, at least in my opinion. Maybe those of you who've been playing the game longer would disagree with me. So that really is what Armored Warfare is. Again, I really need to stress that there's not a massive audience in the game. There's not a lot of players. It can be quite difficult. There are definitely certain areas that the game definitely struggles in. Even like with their server maintenance, like the game will just like go down, and then you'll be on their Discord, and then they're trying to get it fixed, and they get it fixed, and then it can go down again. So there can be sometimes it's quite frustrating in terms of some bugs you might run into the game, or the servers going down. They're not. Let me make myself clear. It's not like this is something that happens every day in terms of the servers acting up. It just expect maybe at least once a week, if not 2-3 times a week, just depending on what they're doing in the game. As they've been investing in, I think, moving some of their servers not too long ago to help remedy some of the issues and stuff. So that's good. So they're trying to address those things to continue on with the game. But in terms of a lot of content, a lot of investment in the game from the developer side, I'd say it's quite minimal, in my opinion. Sorry, is my phone going off? Quite minimal in my opinion compared to something like War Thunder or World of Tanks. Now, you might be a person who's been playing World of Tanks and War Thunder, and you need a break from that and you want to play another tank game on the market. Then Armored Warfare might be your remedy, but definitely don't. It's not the same as World of Tanks. It's not the same as War Thunder. It's different. It feels like the best way I heard someone describe Armored Warfare. They started the game. The developers, they went in, publishers went in, it felt like they want to get a piece of pie from the World of Tanks crowd versus really developing the game into truly something different and unique. And it felt like those people in control, in charge, they got what they wanted and getting a little piece of the pie from World of Tanks, and then they kind of stopped. Because I think there was actually Obsidian Development, Obsidian Entertainment, had some visions and some things that really make the game stand out on its own, but since there was that parting of ways, so to speak, there's just not a lot of regular ongoing development of the game. There's some, of course, but I'd say it's minimum compared to a lot of other games, but it's all different. Your mileage may vary. So I think that's going to go ahead and wrap this video up. I was afraid I wouldn't have a lot to say per se to talk about, but it seems like we did, since we've already been going over 21 minutes. But that is what Armored Warfare is. I'm guessing I've probably had some video feed here in the background throughout playing. So as we go through this new player guide series on Armored Warfare, I will continue to try to be really good at showing different game mechanics. It will be a little bit before we kind of dive into your first battle. I'll start with the lower tier, then we'll go higher tier. But there are a lot of things. The garage can be quite overwhelming when you first log into the game, and just trying to put things together, as I'm still trying to put certain things together. But I hope this new player guide series you'll find valuable for those who are engaged here in Armored Warfare, or at least interested in thinking about it. So if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. And until next time, take care.